May seem like a non sequitur, but we will get there, I promise. I remember being a very young child and happening upon my grandmother one day while she was praying the rosary. This was a common everyday practice for her that I had observed many times, and I finally had the courage to ask her about it. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Praying," was her answer. "Well, what is that?" "Well," she said, "there's a lot of people in our family who could use a little extra help these days, so I'm asking for some help." "Who are you asking?" I wanted to know. "Honey," she said, "the who doesn't matter so much as the why, the how, and the what. You have to know why you're doing it, how you want to do it, and what you're trying to do. Whoever is on the other end, well, that doesn't matter so much. That part can get worked out on its own. You do your part, and someone or something on the other end will do theirs." So for our exploration of soul today, I'd like to channel my grandmother a little bit and say, let's not worry too much about the what. What is a soul? Do I have one? Or the where. Where would a soul be? In us? In me? In everything? But turn our hearts and our attention to the how. How do you grow a soul? How do you take care of a soul? Nurture it from a vacant lot to a veritable Eden. Nurture it like a hyacinth on the windowsill. How do we get those green shoots to sprout and pierce the air and not only grow but flourish and thrive? Or in the words of Thomas More, professor of religion and psychology, it is impossible to define precisely what the soul is. Definition is an intellectual enterprise, and the soul prefers imagination. So whether you think of it as the mind, the breath, the connection, the original nature, the highest, truest self, the divine spark, the piece of you that lives in the fabric of the universe, or if you don't think of it at all, I invite you to join me in some imagining today. The great Unitarian minister A. Powell Davies said that life is just a chance to grow a soul. But how? After exploring many sources and delving deep within myself, I discovered 3 practices that I want to share with you today. These 3 practices I think of as habits of the mind and the heart, and they can assist us in cultivating a deep inner life, a richness that can bring us joy, sustain us in the dark nights of the soul, connect us with the ones around us and the larger mystery. I use the word practice quite intentionally here because these are not overnight life changers. These are exercises for the soul, aerobics of the spirit. They take time, energy, and effort. But I wouldn't be sharing them with you today unless I thought the time, energy, and effort would be worth it. The first is the practice of paying attention. To grow your soul, you must become familiar with its ways. You must pay attention to its wanderings, noticing the obstacles, the stumbling blocks, the excitements, and the joys. John Tarrant, in a work called The Light Inside the Dark, said much of the journey is about the way we work with our attention. It expands the register, bringing us to notice more of the vividness and consolation of our dark lives, so that we can exist in our true range, not go around missing things as if we knew countries only by their airports and their hotels. Attention is the most basic form of love. Through it, we bless and are blessed. What was matter and merely inanimate becomes family, and we, the children, walking home. It is this inner connection that resolves the problem of who we are and makes us at home in the world. For the interior life sweetens the humblest thing. It opens for us magic in ordinary life. When we have an awareness of our own inner lives, our drives, our passions, our foibles, our missteps even, we can find magic. Imagine paying attention to your inner life as closely as Robin Chapman pays attention to the night in this poem. There are no new subjects. Night follows day and then the round. And this can only be cause for gladness, that out of intimate acquaintance, it is possible tonight to see these layers of sky fading to black and know that never before have I seen just this shade of intense, inexhaustible blue. Can you imagine noticing the layers of your inner life in such a way that you can see the shift from inexhaustible blue to black? Noticing the moment you feel joy and grabbing onto it, holding onto it for just this moment, saying a silent thank you that you feel joy, that your whole self can feel this inner shift to happiness, and that you are here and alive to experience it. So much of our lives become a blur. So much happens on autopilot. So much goes unnoticed. Have you ever noticed the exact moment when you've shifted into sadness? When a wave of grief or pain or longing floods over you, and instead of trying to push it away, you decide to ride the wave, taking the time to plumb the depths of the pain and saying, I'm not running this time. I'm going to be aware of this journey and see where it takes me. Because if you do, you will come out a little bit healed, a little bit whole, a little bit holy. Our inner lives, our souls, are inexhaustible depths waiting to be explored. And we live in a world of distractions. The practice of paying attention requires your full awareness. Sit with your breathing and just be. Experience empty non-productivity. Accomplish nothing that is outwardly rewarding. Just be with the remarkable self that you are. And listen. And learn. And grow in knowledge of your full self. The joys, the losses. Grab the happiness. Feel the pain. Explore. Which brings me to the next idea, which is the practice of getting lost. For this one to make sense, I need to tell you a story which comes from Barbara Brown Taylor in a book called An Altar in the World. When I first moved to the land where I live, she says, I shared it with a herd of cows. The first thing I noticed about them was that they were pure white. The second thing I noticed was how predictable they were. With 100 acres at their disposal, they had worn narrow paths across these acres to their favorite watering holes, shady spots, or clover. Some of these tracks were no more than 8 inches wide, which is about 1/4 the width of a cow. Yet the cows knew exactly where to put their feet, even without looking. I soon found myself following these same tracks, and I think I understand something about why the cows use them. In most cases, the tracks mark the shortest route from point A to point B. Where they do not, is because the cows have found ways to get where they're going without expending so many calories. For my purposes, the most valuable thing about the tracks is that I can see where I'm putting my feet. This is important when you share the land with timber rattlers, groundhogs, white cows, and yellow jackets. So I understand the use of narrow paths through wide swaths of unpredictable territory. I do the same thing myself driving home from work. I'm convinced it's normal human behavior. Why would we ever want to override it? Because once you leave the cow path, the unpredictable territory is full of life. Our souls need some detours, some unpredictability, some unknown back roads that may lead to nowhere, to uncover this wilderness gene, the one inside us that shows us just how resourceful, strong, and resilient we really are. When we can allow ourselves to be lost, we can learn how to explore the possibilities. There will be times when we are truly and utterly lost. Divorce ends the dream of a marriage. Death ends the dream of life. Job loss ends the dream of a career. Our soul needs to learn through time in the wilderness that it can trust itself, that we can trust ourselves, that we are braver than we believe, stronger than we seem, and smarter than we think, in the words of Winnie the Pooh. So that when those big wildernesses come, we have a self and a soul that we can rely on. James Hillman, disciple of Carl Jung, once said of the soul, in the focus of life, we focus on a duality between mind and body, and we have lost the third middle position, which earlier in our tradition and in others too was the realm of soul, a world of imagination, passion, fantasy, dreams, reflection that is neither physical and material on the one hand nor spiritual and abstract on the other, yet bound to them both. So I suggest that we need to have times when we let our imaginations run wild, where we experience the dark and fertile soil of our dreams, where our passions can come to life when we believe in possibilities. I'm sure you can think of many ways to get lost, or think of many times when you've gotten lost through no choice of your own. It can happen anywhere, in all kinds of ways. You can get lost on your way home. You can get lost looking for love. You can get lost between jobs. You can get lost looking for God. However it happens, take heart. Others before you have found a way in the wilderness where there are as many angels as there are wild beasts, and plenty of other lost people too. A beloved seminary professor once read us the biblical account of the Jews wandering in the wilderness of the desert for 40 years. I remember her stopping partway through to say, "There's no good reason that it took this long." And then we all just hushed, and she said, "I believe it took 40 years because that's how long it took them to realize two things: that there's a holiness and a power in getting lost, and a holiness and a power of coming together as community." And that's the final practice, the practice of encountering others, the piece that grounds us and reminds us of our radical interconnectedness. It's been said that the hardest spiritual work in the world is to love your neighbor as yourself, to encounter another human being not as someone you can change, fix, use, save, control, but simply as someone who might be able to help you see yourself in a new way, if you allow it. This one is about loving the world and all that inhabits it, seeing the beauty and the brutality, not turning away. Noticing how we are all related, all part of the same dysfunctional, wonderful, absurd, and amazing human family. Meister Eckhart, the 13th century Christian mystic, said that the soul is where God works compassion. This practice is where you work compassion. Make it a verb, a real, lived, active presence in your life. The practice of encountering others is the practice of coming face to face with another human being, preferably someone different enough to qualify as a capital O other, and at least entertaining the possibility that this is the face of a member of your human family. Start with an easy one. Look into the eyes of the cashier at the grocery store when you get your change or your receipt. Treat that person as more than a means to an end. Acknowledge them as a fellow traveler on the journey. This can be a life-saving practice in a world where difference and identity are fuel for the fires of conflict, war, and strife. We have just enough religion to make us hate one another, Jonathan Swift once observed, but not enough to make us love one another. I believe here in our Unitarian Universalists communities that we're creating a new way. We are creating a religion that welcomes, accepts, and celebrates difference. We have enough religion to make us love the world. And it is our call, our challenge to find ways to bring that love to life each and every day. Whether it's looking at alternatives to incarceration, exploring the effects of racism, whether it's meeting to talk about the budget and what impact does it have on everyone in our community, however you engage with this. How can you bring our love of all and our desire to truly make a difference in this complex, muddled world of ours to life? So these three practices, awareness, wilderness, and otherness. What I love about them is that they can be done anywhere, anytime, by anyone. They require no special equipment or gym membership to exercise. They only require an open heart and a willingness to grow. Listen to the whisper of your soul. What needs your attention? How can you get a little lost? And where can you find and connect with the other? Growing our souls will sweeten the humblest thing, will make magic of the ordinary, will open up the realm of possibility and make compassion and love come to life. Your soul will welcome you into this world in deeper and richer ways. Welcome to it. And I think we